Hey folks, so you haven't seen too many videos in the past few weeks, and that's because we finally moved into our house and we've been just very busy and starting to get situated. And here I'm sitting in our sunroom and I plan to do a lot of things in the backyard. I've already started to prepare a couple areas, one for carnivorous plants and the other for having like a fig orchard. So make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can enjoy all these upcoming videos once I'm able to have enough time to make them. But in the meantime, I'm going to be doing an unboxing and planting from The Green Escape. They're an Etsy seller and they have a large selection, and I found a couple Nepenthes pitcher plants that I wanted to purchase. If you've seen any of my previous videos with Nepenthes on there, I have a Nepenthes Ventrata and a Nepenthes St. Gaya, and those two are hybrids and they're commonly available, and I wanted something that is not a hybrid. So I went ahead and purchased a couple that were decently priced. Now, I have these containers that I bought one time from Michael's, and on their website now they look like they're on sale. It shows a price tag of $10, but they're showing it on sale for like from $20. I don't know why, unless they made a different edition and it's on clearance or whatnot. So I'll be taking off this label. I just noticed that. And I'm going to be prepping these before I do the unboxing so that I am able to plant them. So I have two of these containers, and I'll hopefully do something about that road with all these bikers that like to use this artery coming into town. You know, you buy a place out in the country for peace and quiet, and yet Harley makes these loud motorcycles with the way their pistons alternate, and people like to just, you know, basically overcompensate for other things they lack. Anyway, so with that, I need to prepare something so that I don't have to worry about everything falling into the hole, even though it's not a very large hole and I don't need to worry. So I have a bunch of different things. So I have basically a plastic mesh thing, and these are around $1 or so from Hobby Lobby. And using a circle punch, I'm going to punch out two regions so that since I have two, so basically these, I'm going to test it out before I will just sit in there. I probably could have used one a little larger actually. So let me go do that. I'm going to get a larger one of these, but on second thought, I'm not going to worry about this because I'm going to do an alternate method, the zip tie. Most people will zip tie this way to tighten things, but for my method, you want to zip tie like that. So you're going to form like a heart-shaped structure, and you want to bend that in so it's going to be a ring, and that will sit in there, and you have that central piece which will be very useful. I'm going to make this a little smaller. If this piece is like too long, you can always just trim the end a little bit with a pair of scissors. There we go. So then doing that, it cradles nicely. So now I have two. I'm going to make two. So running them in, cutting the tip, and then making sure this is cradled nicely, and testing the other one. Works really well. Then the second thing I'm going to do in preparation of these before I unbox, so hopefully I haven't lost you and you're still watching, is I'm going to use another circle punch, a smaller size, self-adhesive craft foam, and using the adhesive portion up, so aimed out, I'm going to punch some holes. And fortunately I have a few already punched, but I do need to make a few more. And I simply, we'll put that aside for now. I simply take these peel them and stick them on the bottom, and that is how you can make your own pads. Sometimes you buy pots and they have padding underneath, which are made by self-adhesive craft foam, but the problem with them, they never give you enough. They only give you typically 3. And if you have too much width, when you set it down, it's going to bump. And over time, every time you pull it to water, set it back down, you can scuff a nice, good countertop. So I like to put a few more. And this way, when I set it down, it's more level. But you heard that. I could always add more, but I'm doing it on a curved chair, so I'm not going to worry about that. So now, let's see, I should have enough. Okay. So what this does is a great DIY method for your plants to adequately have them growing in a safe way for your furniture as well as your plants. So now with this, we are ready for the unboxing. So using a pair of scissors, I am going to figure out where to open this box. Sometimes these are designed where you just rip open the box, but not in this case. I figure these pairs of scissors are sharp. I'm just using that. When you don't have a box cutter handy, you could do that. And these packages are just sealed pretty well. So I just got back in today, my wife and I, from out of town, and these actually arrived on Saturday. So they've been in here for a couple extra days after I received them, but it's happened before and these plants were fine. So let's see. Okay, here's one and here's another. So if you're looking to how the Green Escape packages, they package the plants in paper and also put more paper fill, but look at their creativity. They actually used one color for the plants and green because plants are green, and regular other ones for the packing. I'm just going to see if there's a packing slip. It's all the way at the bottom. So this way you're not accidentally throwing these out with the packaging and wondering, where are my plants? So now we get to see. I have the packing slip. Drop the box. Plant care. Sometimes if you've seen other unboxing videos, I enjoy looking at their planting instructions and I get to compare it with how I grow things. You know, sometimes you have struggle growing things and you look at the way other people plant them and have success and you try their methods and they don't work, or you have your own way which you feel is easier and more successful than how someone else does, or you both plant your plants really well but you have your both methods. So everybody, the way their green thumb is a little different. So here they say, remove the saran wrap around the roots. Do not remove the mesh lining if present. Place plants directly into soil mixture once received in water if soil pod is dry. Of course, these two are both Nepenthes pitcher plants, so you don't put them in regular potting soil, so that's one deficiency they put here. It also talks about using fertilizers with the ratio of 12 to 6 to 8. They're carnivorous. You don't typically fertilize the soil unless you know what you're doing, and you don't over-fertilize because that can kill them. It tells you don't let the plant expose to drops below 45 for more than 48 hours. Well, if it drops way below 45, it's going to freeze and kill them. And then indirect sunlight only. Direct sunlight will burn the plant. However, direct sunlight has done really well on the other two pitcher plants I have, and they have nice afternoon sun coming directly. So if you want to put some plants where they grow really well, whether they're a low light plant or not, put them on a western window. A lot of begonias are considered low light, and I've struggled with them in low light, but, well, not everyone, but some that are considered low light, but you put them on a west facing window with direct sunlight in the afternoon, and some of them have done really well. So keep that in mind, that plant instructions are not always accurate. They're generalized and not specific to your plant in a lot of situations. So while I enjoyed the way they unpackaged them in the, the way they packaged them in this unboxing video, I don't like that they just gave a generalized instructions. So now we're going to look at, I've been really dying for the Nepenthes ampularia, and this is the Black Miracle one, versus the Nepenthes sanguinea. So I'm going to open this one first. So I'm carefully peeling their label, and to make sure I'm careful, I'm going to actually use a pair of scissors. Okay. So okay, they have it taped so it doesn't migrate, and they have it in polyester fiberfill. You can go to a craft store, like if you're making pillows, like seat cushion type pillows for your couch or something, this is what they used to stuff them in. But I'll give you a secret. If you need some filter media for your aquarium, if you have an aquarium set up, they sell what they call polyester fiberfill also as a filter media in an aquarium store. I've seen them before. Yet they're the same thing as what you get from a craft store, and you get a huge bag for the cost of a tiny bag from an aquarium store. So if you have fish, keep that in mind. I used to have a fish tank, and I want to set up a small one, and I love planted tanks. I had some years ago, and still have my aquarium, so I'll be doing stuff soon. Like you can see this 2-gallon tank. It was a hexagonal 2-gallon tank they used to sell at Walmart back in the mid-90s. And it was basically, I had it in college. I had LED in there, a couple female betas at one point. I even had a mud turtle named Muddy for a couple of years. And now I have a couple of butterworts in there. But anyway, this is a little too tight that I don't want to damage the roots, but fortunately it rips off the saran wrap. Now, before I fully open this, I am going to grab something that I forgot to grab before we started this video. It was right next to me too. Basically, long fiber sphagnum moss. And this typically makes a mess, so I'm going to have this box next to me. And what I'm going to do is, I don't know if this is in frame or not, it should be, but if not, oh well. I'm going to just tighten this a little bit. Whoops. Okay. So I also have one thing I didn't mention earlier. A couple pieces of synthetic fiber cording, like macrame cord. And I'm just putting these, basically this thing, the way I strung it up, they loop. So now they're like that, and that can go in the white water, and that is a wick. So I've noticed that this way I've had so much success with planting Nepenthes pitcher plants, as opposed to having them in peat moss in a regular pot. I haven't had as much success as I've had this way. They'll live for a while and then die unless I overwater them, then they die fast, because Nepenthes pitcher plants, and I don't know if you can see the small pitchers on them, they like to stay wet, the roots do, but if they're waterlogged, it will kill them. So this way you can make sure the roots stay wet without them being waterlogged. So I'm going to start with putting a little bit in here, and start with that before I unwind this. I know I'm planting this rather than opening both and then planting them, but that's fine. You can see that here they had peat moss with perlite in there, but they also had it pretty long, but the roots aren't that long at the moment. So I'm just going to stick this in here and press it down and add more of the long fiber long fibrous sphagnum. Now, as you've noticed, assuming I'm in frame, which I think I am at the bottom of the frame, what I've noticed, or what you've noticed, is I kept the media they already included. Some of it fell in there, but the wick fell, so that's not good. That defeats the purpose. So I can actually pick this up. Ooh, making a mess here. I'm making a mess. La 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 la. So, grab the packaging, set it down in there, take this, all the debris, and grab that. So if that ever happens to you and you're like, how do I keep this from popping out? What you need to do is just run it in here. And you can always loop it once or twice. And that is no problem for the plant unless these, I like the wicks to go all the way down. So you see, it's as long as it's getting close to the bottom, it's fine. I never let these dry out completely. And eventually the roots will grow in there and that will be great. So now I can stick this back in there. And I know I'm out of frame, but c'est la vie. But you'll see it in a moment. So I'm grabbing up some more sphagnum moss. So eventually the sphagnum moss will settle and won't be sticking out as it gets wet and patted down with future waterings and everything. Now, if you use regular bud vases that are small, this has a nicer opening. Sometimes it can be a little tricky to water, so just keep that in mind. But I haven't had all these issues with the other two Nepenthes of the water turning green. I don't have them next to me, but stay tuned. I'll show them to you at the end of this video. So now we have one down, one more to go. So I'm going to prepare this bud vase. So like I did the other one, loop this around. Like so. Oops. There. And stick them in. And this one, you can see it's touching the bottom, which is good. Set that there on the ground momentarily. And now we know the trick. Cut the label. And unwind. Oh wow, these are much bigger pictures. I hope I'm not damaging the roots having to squeeze this packing tape. Okay. So if you're finding yourself risking damaging the roots, you can always cut that with a pair of scissors. So this is the Nepenthes sanguinea, and they don't look very impressive right now, just little green pitchers, well, bigger than the other one, but I can't wait for the ampularia. And anyway, but this one has a mesh around the peat moss, so this one must have been propagated in a different fashion or slightly different environment, but I kind of wish this would get a little bigger, but I can actually stick this down in there, but it's not going to be centered if I stick it on the side of one, so I'll rotate it to where it can lean. And one interesting thing about pitcher plants, when they lean, sometimes they'll create new branches, so then you can propagate via cuttings that way. A lot of plants, if they lean over, they can produce new plantlets. So I'm going to be back off frame momentarily while I fill this up. And I am making a mess on the floor. I typically do these in the cardboard box, but not this time apparently, or obviously. So let's see, putting this in there, making sure I don't damage the pictures while I bend my head and you guys enjoy my boldness. Well, bald spot or whatever. Sometimes you do find debris in the long fibrous sphagnum moss. I'm not sure what that is. You can or cannot leave it in there. It's up to you, or you may want to or not. It's not detriment. And this is the Chilean long fibrous sphagnum. If I'm not mistaken, I can always look on the box or packing and see. And this is just basically from Lowe's. I read Chile on this one time, I believe. But I'm not seeing it right now. But anyway, usually they'll tell you product of wherever. So, I do not see it on here. Odd. But I have, I think it's from Chile. So now this is, whoa. So now this is the result. I have a couple pictures there. It could use a little more. And these were a little more compacted. It's sticking up, so this one I could put a little more, which I may want to do, but you don't have to put it all at once. Oh, look, more gunk, but I'll leave that in there. You don't have to put this overfill it all at once, because in reality you can always add as needed. You know, it will expand a little bit as it soaks up water. And I'm just grabbing a little bit off the floor. And I've read more than once that Nepenthes pitcher plants can handle some tap water. So that's good if you have no other alternatives, but I don't know how it would do long term, or if any solutes will build up in these containers. So I'm just using plain old store-bought distilled water, and sometimes you can fill this up ahead of time, and then you just add to it and top it off. But I'm going to basically just fill this up while the sphagnum moss is still dry, as high as I can. So I like to fill it up. You can fill it up close to the rim. In this case, because I'm just starting out, or if the sphagnum moss starts to get dry, I can fill it up a little further up. Now remember, you don't want it to be waterlogged, so make sure you don't fill it up all the way to the rim at the top. You want it basically to, this way I have it touching the sphagnum moss, so as the sphagnum moss soaks it up, it will go down to the bottom, and it's kind of there. And it's just a good way to start this, and that tape on that bag keeps interfering here. But I just want to check these leaves, make sure they're not buried. Yep. It's not a big deal because some of these lower leaves will eventually brown and die as the plant grows, but I did have a pitcher that was buried, and it's nice to leave it exposed so I can enjoy it. Oh, there's another one. Okay. So now I can fill this up. Because the sphagnum moss is pretty dry and it's not overly compacted, it's filling pretty fast. But if it was overly compacted, it would be such a pain to fill, especially with some of the smaller bud vases. Sometimes it fills the top and doesn't drain down the bottom fast, and then you start to overflow if you're not careful. And if you have a wash bottle, you can actually use those to water these as well. Those work pretty well. So now, here's the lid. Now I can set these on the west-facing sunny window, and as they grow, I can enjoy the pictures that form on them. But as I promised earlier, let me show you the other two Nepenthes pitchers that I have growing in bud vases. So let me quickly grab them. Okay, I'll start with this one. So this is my Nepenthes Ventrata, and I'll be, as these pictures, once they're fully dry like this, not when I have just a dead picture and the leaf is still there, I'll typically cut them off. And this has started to grow to where it's leaning down, and it's pretty rigid that way. I'll just see how that fares over time. I think I have a dead leaf from another plant. So this one, when it comes to watering, this is a typical bud vase you can find sometimes in grocery stores that have a paper white daffodil where you have the big bulbs sitting in there. And this one is the one which, whenever I water, you can see I'm dripping. I have to be very careful. But as you can see, it's not like all green and everything inside at the bottom. So it's doing pretty well. Because I use distilled water and no fertilizer, I don't have to worry as much about algae blooms happening in these. Now, if you do have an algae bloom in that, then you can always clean it out and start over. And anyway, so you see I'm watering it fairly carefully, getting up to the bottom and leaving it there. But you don't have to water all the way to there, but fortunately, I haven't had an issue of killing these yet. But I have killed them, planted in other ways. This one, I have a pot in here that it's growing in, and then the wicks coming out of the bottom. So if you have a larger vase, sometimes you have the hurricane vases, but you want to find a pot that will sit there and not fall in, not wedge through there. So anyway, these are pretty good. I'm surprised that I watered them both at the same time, and this one's still fairly full, but this Nepenthes St. Gaya, you can see their flamboyant pictures, has multiple shoots coming out, which is kind of nice. But while I have this pulled away from the window, I can go ahead and water it a little bit. And this way I don't have to worry about it later. There's hardly anything left in there. But I'll use what I have left maybe for those butterworts. The soil dries out fast on them. Well, that is the unboxing from the Green Escape. I'm just making sure I say the right company. Off Etsy with a Nepenthes ampularia and a Nepenthes sanguinea. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching and happy planting.